Hello chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel, and welcome to my commented chess games. So it's been a while since my last video. I was on vacation. I was on the Croatian seaside with my family, and I really had a great time. I really needed some rest because I have my work, I have my YouTube chess channel, and sometimes it's too much for me, so I really needed a week off. And today I wanted to show you a special game. It was played a couple of days ago between my brother-in-law Antonio Radić. You all know probably about him. He has the largest and the best YouTube chess channel about chess, Agadmator's chess channel, and he played against my nephew. He's my brother's son, and they played on the Ante Krnjić Memorial. The Ante Krnjić Memorial is really a great tournament, and Ante Krnjić was Antonio's grandfather, and it was really great tournament. Antonio had good success. I think he managed to finish on the third place with only one loss and one draw. And today I wanted to show really this great game because Filip, my nephew, he's making still progress in chess, and I always wanted to publish one game which he played very well because I want to motivate him to continue with chess, because chess is really sometimes hard to follow, because when you lose some games then you get depressed, and I really wanted, as I mentioned, to motivate Filip to continue, although he didn't maybe play the best of his tournaments, but he played a really great game against Antonio, and it was really a family duel in chess, and it was really a great Benko gambit game. So the Benko gambit game has its own rules. You'll see, I will show you also some strategical elements of the common Benko gambit. I think it's a good line if you have troubles while playing against d4, so you can try it out. Sometimes it's really aggressive line, but it's also a clear line, and it's easy to memorize. The moves are coming really to you very easily, and I think if you really have troubles you should try it out. So we have here d4 by Antonio, knight on f6 by Filip, c4, and now c5. We can transpose sometimes here into Benoni, and here Antonio played d5. And now comes this Benko gambit move, b5. If you decline the Benko gambit, it's not so good, because if you try something like e3, you get the bishop out, and this bishop would be bad, and here blocked out by its own pawn. b3 is also not good, because we can always try bishop on g7, bishop g6, bishop on g7, and occupy this diagonal. So that's why it's even the best way to take this pawn on b5. Here we have a6 by Filip, here b takes a6, and this is still common theory of the Benko gambit. Now comes g6, and now knight on c3. Of course Antonio wants to prepare here the move e4, still common theory. As I mentioned, we have bishop on a6. We are waiting now white to play the move e4. If you play the move e4, then of course bishop takes on f1 will prevent white from castling, but it's still common theory. You see, you have lost a pawn from black's perspective, but here Antonio played this move e4, and after bishop on f1, the king takes on f1. You see, black has sort of compensation because we are pawn down, but it's really an unnatural king's position. So basically the best way for white is to go king g3, king on g2, and then h3. So here Filip played, of course, first the move d6, because there were some threats with the move e5. e5 is really dangerous. Then you have two centralized pawns here on the 5th rank. You're basically playing on a very nice restriction against black's minor pieces, so that's why d6 is the must move here, and you have to play it. So, and here Antonio goes into, well, it's sort of a wild line. It's of course the idea to play something like maybe bishop on e3 or bishop on g5, trade off the bishops here on g7, and try this common flank attack. But with the king on f1, it's really, I think, too rushed way to play against this Benko gambit setup. The best way, I think, is to play the move g3 here. It's the most natural way. After bishop on g7, knight on f3, and here knight from b to d7, you have to move h3, which is very important in the Benko gambit setup. because you're preventing knight on g4 ideas, and then knight on e5, cementing really this e5 square. So that's why this would be a better line after castling here, king on g2, and you have secured your king. Still you haven't lost too much of tempos, I think, because now you can try here to make progress on the queen side. And the main idea from white's perspective is to play here maybe rook on b1 and protect really this advantage of this one pawn up. But black's ideas in these positions are to simply trade off all of these minor pieces. So when you're playing the Benko gambit, one of the ideas you'll see, this will be a very important idea here by Filip, is simply to trade off all of these knights, all of these bishops off the board, or even the queens off the board, and try to get in these types of positions in which we are one pawn down. Still we are one pawn down, but here black can really gain some progress with some moves like e6, getting some central control here. Then you occupy the center with 3 pawns, with 3 connected pawns here, the e6, d6 and c5. And still it's hard for white to push pawns here, because we have really a powerful attack against these two pawns, and these are, as I said, the main ideas. So from black's perspective, we can try something like rook on a3, rook on b4, and here still the common idea of this e6 move, because sometimes it's hard for white to get out of this first rank, because we have some tactical possibilities with rook takes on b3. So these are this main strategical ideas. You'll see Filip will try to trade off as many of these pieces in the continuation of the game. So he played on this very important strategical elements of this Benko gambit setup. And as I said, here Antonio played h4 with a direct attack. It's still also common theory, and here Filip made also a slight inaccuracy with the move h5. You don't have to do that. You can play simply bishop on g7. You can simply continue, because after h5 it's not a threat. You can simply take. After rook takes on h5, we have g takes h5, and after queen takes on h5 we can simply take this knight. Bishop takes on c3, b takes c3, and then queen on a5. So it's not a problem. We don't have to even castle here. From black's perspective, we want to play maybe the knight on d7, knight on f6, attacking this pawn, getting use of this semi-open and open files. So these are these ideas. So you see, this flank attack is not so dangerous. So that's why this h5 move, I think it's unnecessary. And here Antonio played knight on f3. We have knight from b to d7, bishop on f4, of course preparing this e5 pawn breakthrough, also a common idea. And here Filip plays now this very important move, knight on g4, preventing this in e5 ideas. And that's why I like this setup simply by white here with the move g3, and here with the move h3, because it really prevents this very important knight on g4 idea. This knight on g4 is really common strategical idea also from black's perspective. So as mentioned, here after bishop on f4, knight on g4 was played by Filip, preventing e5, and here knight on d2. Bishop on g7, we have knight on c4, and here we see we have now these ideas, simply trading off as many pieces as we can. Knight on e5, cementing the knight on a very important square, and f4, if you try f4, if you want to prepare f4, then you see after f4 we can still bring the knight on a very active square again on g4, and you need then this move h3 in order to kick away this pawn. So that's why this h4, although it's an aggressive move, it also leaves spaces behind. So here knight on e3, queen on b6. You see now, these are the main targets in the Benko gambit, the a and b pawn, and here queen on e2. Castling played by Filip, and now rook on h3. And this is really a mistake now by Antonio. Here you have to try to connect somehow the rooks, although you'll see Antonio will manage to connect the rooks somehow, but it's really lost of tempo. Here Filip uses this moment immediately and played rook on b8 with a direct attack. As I mentioned, here the b2 is really weak, and that's why here rook on b1 had to be played. And now comes this idea. It's really the best move here. Filip found really an engine move. It's really a great move, because basically we're asking ourselves what to do here. Well, how can we make progress here in this types of position? And here Filip plays, as I mentioned, here the main strategical idea is to get off as many of these pieces off the board. So here queen on a6, great idea, forcing a trade of queens, simply going forward. Queen takes on a6, and now rook takes on a6. We stay with our very powerful attack against these two weak pawns, and we have still possibilities. Knight on d3, knight on c4 if this knight gets out of the board. So here bishop on h2 was played with the preparation to play maybe f4, but the f4, as I mentioned, is not so powerful anymore, because you have still knight on g4 ideas, because you can still play here knight on g4 even immediately. If you take knight takes on g3, it's really the best move here for black. After a takes g3, you have to play rook on e3, and then we can simply take bishop takes on c3. You have to take with the rook, and now we can take this weak pawn. So you see, this knight on c3 is the main protector of this a2 pawn. So this powerful attack of these rooks is really a great one on this b and a file. Basically you're forced maybe to play even rook on c2 or even b3 in order to keep this b pawn protected. And still we can try something like knight on b6, maybe then after that also knight on a4. So this knight is more mobile than this bishop, and we can also try something like f6, even preventing this e5 moves. So here in this position, as said, bishop on h2 with its preparation to play maybe f4 is not so dangerous, because we can still play, as I mentioned, this very important knight on g4 move. And here Filip tried another way. He played the move knight on d3, which is also a good one. Here black has the decisive advantage. Here we have now again this attack against this b2 pawn, and here knight on c4. You have to protect this b2 pawn. And now bishop takes on c3. Of course you cannot take with the b pawn, because you simply lose the rook here on b1. So that's why rook takes on d3, and now bishop on g7. Bishop on f6 is more accurate, because you're playing with the tempo. You see, it's all about tempos in these types of positions. So here white would be forced to play the move bishop on g3, and then we can still play on our common idea here, knight on g6. And here the pawn is also hanging, so it will be simply a better position here for black. So, but still, after bishop on g7, it's still a good position, I think, for black. And here a3 was played by Antonio. And now, very important move, rook on a4. You see, we're preventing this b3 move. The b3 move would really help white out, because then we would have again a sort of flexibility in the game. The a3 is protected, the b3 is protected, and here you cannot play b3, because then you get rook takes on c4. After b takes on c4, you lose some material, and that's why here Antonio tries an aggressive way, b4. But this b4 was really a mistake. Now c takes b4 was played, and now Antonio played on the spinning idea. Of course you cannot take b takes a3 anymore, because you simply lose the rook on the b file. But this is really now the critical moment of the game. Here Filip had a really winning move, and he missed really this move. It's a counter-attack move. You can pause the video and try to find really the best move here. The best move is here to play rook on c8, and if you try something like knight on b2, then we can simply play b takes a3. You're forced pardon me, you cannot play, of course, your rook is under attack. You have to play rook takes on a3 after b takes on a3. Here after b takes on a3 with an attack on the knight, you have to move the knight, and now a2 is very dangerous because we have now the support of this bishop on the square a1, and white will lose the rook. So if you try something like rook on b4 here, then we can simply still take the knight and you lose some material. If you try something like knight on d2, again with the same idea, b takes a3, still we can make some progress. You see, if you try something like rook on b7, a2 is simply winning. If you try something like knight on d6 here, we can simply take, bishop takes, we can take this pawn. If you take this pawn, we can take this pawn, again with an attack on this pawn on h4, you see. And really Filip missed this move, rook on c8. He played knight on c5, and still nothing is lost. It's still an equal position because Antonio played the correct move. Rook takes on b4, of course you have to take, and now a takes b4, and now knight takes on e4. Still we have equal material, and here rook on b3 was played, and rook on c8 is also an accurate move here by Filip, attacking this rook with the idea, of course, to take the knight with some fork ideas on d2. So that's why here f3 was played, and here Filip makes now this decisive mistake. He plays rook takes on c4, and the problem is after a trade of knight. Here, after rook takes on e4, Antonio has this supported pass pawn, and it's basically game over here for black. And here, after f3, even you can proceed with knight on c3. And if you try something like knight on b6, we can play rook on c7, nothing special. Here, if you try bishop on g1, rook on a7 can be played. We have some dangerous threats with some checks on a7. If you try b5, you see rook on a1 is very dangerous. After bishop on king on f2, we have bishop on d4, so it will be also game over here for white. So it's still playable, although of course Antonio has this supported pass pawn. You have to be careful. And as I mentioned, and Filip made really this decisive mistake here after f takes e4, rook takes on e4, and now Antonio simply started to push pawns. b6, this pawn is unstoppable. Here rook on b8, after bishop on g1, bishop on f6 was played, and now g3, simply protecting this pawn. Here e6 was played, d takes e6, f takes e6, and now bishop on a7. More moves were played in the game, but it's really resignable. Here you have to lose some material, you have to lose the rook, and it's of course game over for Filip. So as I mentioned, he missed his chances with this move. He didn't play this move rook on c8, which was very important here in this position. So he had to play this counter attack with rook on c8. And the evaluation here is really winning for black. It's really dangerous counterattack here by black. But okay, also great game by Antonio. He played aggressive. He plays always this aggressive style. But I think this h4, okay, it's really playable. It was played in some intermaster level, but I think you're simply leaving too much space behind. You see, it's hard then to play some f3 moves in order to prevent this very important knight on g4 ideas by black, because then you weaken the dark squares. And okay, these are really some positional threats that I always like to say. But okay, it was really great game, and congratulations to Antonio for the third place. It was really great tournament here in my hometown in Krnjić, and it was really important that we had such a tournament. The winner was Jurica Srbić. You probably have watched him on some of my streams. He always kicks my butt in chess, and he's a really cool guy and a great player. He's an intermaster, and I wish him also the best in the continuation of his career. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game. I will follow my nephew's career. I hope he'll have a chess career. He had really some great games so far. He had also some winning chances in this simultaneous game against Garry Kasparov. So Filip, continue to play, and I think in the next year you can even crush Antonio in chess. Okay, see you soon guys with some new videos. Chess is the best, of course.